General Malice.
All right, welcome everyone. This is our big panel of the day. This is the original cast of Mortal Kombat. Without further ado, I should say my name is David Kalin first. I am the organizer of Classic Game Fest, so on behalf of all of us, thank you for coming this weekend. We really appreciate it. And so now, without further ado, I present the cast of Mortal Kombat, Mr. Daniel Pesina. And Mr. Carlos Pesina.
Love everybody here. Love everybody.
Mr. Anthony Marquez.
Yes, baby, yes.
And Mr. Host Pack. So, this is the Fab Four we all know and love right here.
Thank you for having us.
The cast of Mortal Kombat.
No. I want to thank Dave and, thank everybody at Classic Game Fest for making this event a fucking awesome time. And before we start,
Get some kids
everything awesome.
Yeah, there's some kids in here.
Kids are out there. Sorry. Just want to thank you guys. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah, you probably heard the worst from your parents.
No! Don't say that.
Growing up, but yeah, we have, we're going to talk a little about Mortal Kombat, field some questions. We have, where'd you go? Okay, we're good. We have someone in the crowd. We have someone able to think of some quick questions. Hopefully we'll be able to answer everything. And again, thanks for having us here. This is my second year, and it's awesome. It's so awesome that I brought up with some friends, so yeah. Especially the Shaman monks, like, Tony and Sung rarely make appearances together. They just schedule never matches. In the old days, they were inseparable. Yeah, but you know how life changes courses and things like that. And then my brother just retired from NetherRealm 2 years ago. As far as questions, I think he can fill a lot of them, including a little bit of the work. He worked on this new game for about 3 or 4 years already, so this game
About 2 years.
yeah, been in development for a while. And so, with that, what you do?
I mean, you probably talk about a little bit about the process. About what were some of the things with your Mortal Kombat experience that you think the people can relate to as far as their fandom and you being a part of it?
Yeah, we can go down the line.
Yeah, we can go down the line. For us, when we were first, pitching the games midway, and Ed, John was like, let's bring all the best ideas we can possibly bring. And right away, we were thinking of things that, we grew up together, we were geeks. We collected comic books, we attended video game events, not anime events. There wasn't hardly any video game events. But we wanted to have some of those ideas like in a game because those were things that we were growing up with, right? Kind of with that, we used to hang out at, go to Genesis for games, remember that? What's on the Pac-Man all day long?
That's right.
He was pretty good at that. Yeah, 1/4 lasted a long time.
Hours.
Yeah.
Well, like my brother said, it's a cultural thing, and even this is a culture. And a subculture. Back then, we didn't have the internet, so you would have to socialize by going to a place, meaning like an arcade, or put your friends together, go to the library, play D&D. So a lot of most of the ideas come from things that were relevant in our culture back then. We had Van Damme, you had Schwarzenegger, you had all those action movies. And those are the things that all of us here in this room love. And we love doing that. And you just want to bring something that's a passion, you know, to something you're working on. And try to make it relevant. You know, at the time when the game was pitched, we were more or less thinking, it's going to be, you know, an okay game. It would be great. What we do is great. You know, try to do our best. But you don't know how people are going to receive that, you know, on the back end of production. And when it became a hit, it was just, you know, kind of overwhelming. But for us, we're all humble, and we just more or less yeah, except for Bo and Tony and maybe Rich DeVizio, and then, you know, no, I'm kidding. But, you know, we were all just wanting to do our best and make something special. And, you know, it's just the stars were aligned, you know, we had a blessing, you know, God blessed us, and we made a great game, you know, and it continues on up until today, you know, so.
Yeah, so I do just gotta get this out there that I am probably the most humble person I know. I think I am really the most humble person. So, but again, you know, to go off of what Carlos was saying, you know, you don't know where this game is going to go or whatever, but, you know, we're all, you know, as younger people, training martial arts, hanging out together, and it wasn't just Tokang and I, we're all inseparable, and then, you know, and this has been going on for decades, and then 30 years on, being here with you guys, still, you know, talking about our childhood, talking about everything that, you know, we just did down at the table, and then coming up here. Those type of things, it's priceless. You can't ask for anything better than that. So I'm really happy that we're.
Now, Tony was not in game one, so I'm not sure what exactly what you're talking about. Okay, I was just kidding. But no, you're not. from my perspective, it was Danny and Carlos and Rich who invited me to the game because I don't know if you guys know, so we also did the Turtle movie, right? I played the character, Raphael, and Danny played the Foot Soldiers. And then after that, Danny's like, yeah, we're going to do this video game. And I thought, okay, sounds fun, so let's give it a shot. And that's all it was. It wasn't supposed to be anything like Carl said, anything big. And when we realized, I think, that it was going to be big, was when I believe Dan, myself, and Carlos, we were doing Turtles 3 in Oregon. Yeah. And then, right when we got there for rehearsals and I think we were starting to film, we had some people tell us about the game. Like, they told us about the game. And at that point, we didn't think anything of it. Like, I didn't even know it came out, to be honest with you, right? Like, I had no idea what was going on. And they came to us and said how excited they were about the game. And I think that's where we realized how big the game could become. So even after the game came out, I actually had no idea. It was my friends telling us from the film set how excited they were about the video game.
Yeah.
Is how I learned about the game. So there you go.
And just as a note, originally Tony was going to be Scorpion. So the night before we were going to film Scorpion, he dropped a 25-pound weight on his toe and he broke his toe. And the thing is, in order to do the filming, you can't go at full speed because we were using John Tobias' dad's camera. So it wasn't even like a, you know, professional. You know, it wasn't really.
Yeah, it wasn't a 3-chip camera back in the day. That was the lingo of like,
yeah.
3 chips in that camera.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be, you know, 480 by whatever. You know.
Yeah.
Not 1080.
So then all of a sudden we were already behind schedule with the game, and John was like, you gotta jump in, and you just have to jump in and do the characters. We have to get this done, and you're the one who's designing all the fights and all the movement, and you just have to do that. And then reality set in, because in order to save money, John and I bought a child's extra large ninja costume to fit on Tony, because we wanted to save money. An adult an adult medium looked about the same as a child's extra large. But it was not. And then when I had to put that on, that's a totally different horror story.
See, that's what happens.
So let's capitalize on the process of the motion capture. Maybe Carlos can finish up kind of like the progression of where the animation today that we see with Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat 1 coming out. What was it like doing that process, filming with Ed, and going through the motions of making and developing these characters and giving them their personal style that we see today all of?
Yeah, when I got the first day of filming, like John was like, we need to create a pathway to the game. So John and I got his dad's camera, we put it in the room, and then John turned to me and said, do something cool. So I was like from a Kung Fu background, heavily into Kung Fu, so the first like 2 days of movement were like,
You're gonna show them.
I was just like this, and so I'd go like this, hit, kick, boom, boom, and then come back to a standing posture. And so I would do that like 30 times. The same move over and over. So sometimes it would be here, like this, do an elbow, and then come back into it. So the first thing I thought of was to do, because I played Street Fighter. I played Street Fighter, and I wanted to have like some kind of controlled combinations. So, and then John was like, try it again, looking at it, because we really didn't know what we were like doing. So we spent 2 days, 10-hour days, just John and I, and we didn't have Ed come in yet because there was nothing for Ed to look at. Ed was going to do the programming and show us all the programming, but you have to have something to program. You know, you have to have an idea to go forward. So Ed wasn't there for a long time during the concepts, a lot of things. So we were just kind of goofing around, trying to be like, okay, do that again, do that. Then eventually it became like, okay, you're going to do the technique, and then you're going to change it in some way, and you're going to repeat it 8 times. So here we go. So if I went like this, I do this 8 times, and then I do this 8 times, because it's basically almost the same thing. And then I do this 8 times, then I do this 8 times, and 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 then I was doing just the basic motion, changing it, trying to see if we can catch, they call this a ghost head. They call us a phoenix eye. So we were seeing if we can catch that on camera, you know, to have like different power blows. That way, when if this one would be more dangerous than a regular punch, just as a theory. So we were doing all this poke like this, poke with 2 fingers. Oh, you can't see 2 fingers? Oh, try it like that. Do this 8 times. Turn it a little bit more. Do this 8 times. And so 2, kicking. Kick. Oh, kick again. Oh, kick, but don't move your body. Okay, so you got to kick 8 times. Oh, can you change your foot like this 8 times? Because when you move your body, oh, the shading. If I move back like this, all of a sudden the back of your head is lit. And the lighting we had, we took from desks. So John and I went to people's desks, got desk lamps, and lit the stage like that. Because we didn't have it.
They only
no
had
money.
like 3-point lights, you know, very basic.
We had no money. There was no money for this game. So it was like literally, and not only that, when we were done stealing people's lights, we'd have to remember whose desk we took it off of because we didn't have it. And so we were just, it was this 60 hours of videotape of all this stuff. And in the end, John erased it so we would have room to actually begin to work on ideas that we would have thought would work. So the original 60 hours of the creation of Mortal Kombat will never be seen. That is just erased over. And then, you know, compared to how many hours of filming did they do in like 3 and 4? You know?
No, I couldn't.
So like Mortal Kombat 1 is probably conservatively 600 hours of filming. And all the ideas came from the filming. You know, we would film, people would study it and look at it, and then sometimes they'd come in and tell you to do exactly what you just did. Hey, I got an idea, do this. And then kind of look at them and be like, dude, I know you watched my film yesterday because you're telling me to do exactly what I already did. I think we're wasting time doing that. Anyways, it was really, you know, on like the 7th day, John came in and he's like, okay, I got an idea. Let's do high, medium, low. And do all the techniques for high, all the techniques for medium, all low, no combinations. And then we started just going from there.
And just to expound on that for that is in game development, the initial combat design for Mortal Kombat. So there was, and I'm just assuming this because I don't think John Tobias has any, and he might have to correct me if I'm wrong, you know, he doesn't have any paperwork more or less or any record of, hey Daniel, come in the first day and this is what I want you to do exactly. You know, like throw a front punch, high, you know, hitbox, whatever. And just to expound on that, later on in the game development, that's what I would do. I would take the combat design, I would use what my brother did and expound on that and, you know, work with, you know, whether it was Ad himself or the game designer and say, hey, this is, you know, for Mortal Kombat 5, 6, and 7, which is Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon, I would do the motion capture process. I would also do the combat design. I would pick out like these are the attacks we think we need, work with the game designer, and then go back into the studio and film any additional things that we might have missed. Because when you're in game development, you could polish up a character, but then probably like 6 months down the line, you can say, oh my God, we tweaked this other character too much. We need to backfill, character A, which could be Scorpion or Johnny Cage. And along those lines, that continued on for the past, I don't know, since I more or less made it a design, I would say a design heritage. And that's the system that they use up until today. But that's also based off of what my brother and John did. So it's not, it's kind of like in the family and then expounding a little bit on it, because the 3D games got a little bit different, than the first ones. And what I was trying to do was emulate, whenever I did any motion capture, what I tried to do was emulate anything that my brother did, Ho-Sung did, or Tony, or Rich, or John Parrish, that I thought, hey, this is their heritage, and I'm going to try to mimic that to keep their spirit alive within the game. And also for you guys, my friends who love the game and supported us, you would look back and go, yeah, that's what Cage always did. That's how he did his shadow, for all the games, and just tried to keep that consistency for everybody. And they're doing this reset. We'll see what it looks like and see if you guys like it. That's on NetherRealm and Warner Brothers. I wish them luck. I worked on it for 2 years. We expounded on the story. We tried to do, a film quality story. If you guys watched that day 11, that whole storyline. We did choreography. I did most of the choreography for that. And, just work with everybody within, the team. Just like how we are up here. We all tried to work together and try to make something passion that we all love, because we're a family. We're all a family. We love working off of each other and trying to expound on it.
And
try to
also,
support each other.
Also, for the first game, there was no, hey, act like this or do this. Like when we brought Ho-Sung in, we would just let him do whatever he wanted to do. He would just create the character how he wanted. My job was to adjust it to make sure that Ed would later on be able to use the movement, and also to make the movement clean enough So that way John wouldn't spend so much time trying to clean up the image and do stuff to the image. So when you see things like, you know, when you really see Liu Kang, it's like, you know, what Ho-Sung brought to it. Because we never said, do this. We were just like, okay, what do you want to do? How do you want this character to be? So that's what, like a lot of times that OG is, I think a lot of people don't realize how much, you know, it's awesome to have other actors step
Well,
in.
he defined these characters. You know, he's saying we define them because that's our characteristic. You know, when John approached us to be each individual character, like who would you want to play? You know, my brother wanted to be Raiden at one point, and then you figure Cage, you know, he's a good fit for that because we knew each other's personalities. And none of us fought for, like, except for DC. No, we didn't fight for any character, but we, you know, when somebody said, hey, do you want to, you know, when John approached me, you want to be Raiden? Immediately I was like, you know, we all love Kung Fu, we all love martial arts. All I could think of is like Big Trouble in Little China. You know, we love Kung Fu movies. You know, I love like all that fantasy, you know, like movies coming up in the 90s with, you know, people shooting fireballs and electricity. That's all that ran through my head, and I'm like, okay, I gotta play this character. You know, and that's the personality we all brought to that, to those characters, and those define that for everybody else afterwards. You know, that's just my opinion.
I'm not. I do. One of the things that's interesting is, you know, we all grew up together, we're all friends. We all did martial arts together, different styles of martial arts. What's interesting is when you see MK1, like Rich is kind of like Kanan, right? The guy who plays Kanan. And Rich is kind of like that. He's kind of like, you know, kind of like, if you didn't know him, he's kind of like thuggish.
Yeah.
Like you'd be scared of him. You saw him on the street, you'd be scared of him. And then, yeah, Carlos, like you had the energy of Raiden and Daniel, like you said, with Johnny Cage. Myself a little bit, I mean, I did grow up watching Bruce Lee, and obviously it's modeled after Bruce Lee. So, you know, that was a take on it. And then with a, you know, probably a little bit extra to it. And then you played Scorpion Sub-Zero. What's interesting is like Danny knows the rope guard, right? So it happens to be that the Scorpion character had the rope guard. So it is kind of weird how the characters fit our personalities. So it worked out well. And I think maybe that's the energy of the game, that's why it worked. I think you guys enjoyed the game, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And it showed, right? Like these characters, they really look like these guys. So I think that helped.
Yeah, so, you know, to expound on that, like Danny was saying, that, oh, I was supposed to do the ninja characters or whatever. And in all honesty, it would have been fine. You know, I think I would have done a good job doing that. But
Danny, I think, would have been much, much better.
okay, so but it is really, you know, that magic in the bottle. So you have MK1, and I'm glad that these guys figured out, you know, get all these bugs out, figure this out, and then you guys could bring me in, and then that way we could have a better game.
Only because Danny and I got better.
But it is really that magic in the bottle, that, you know, the concept, the art, the game design, the programming, the right people doing the right roles, and it would, you know, did the actors form into the role? Were the roles kind of patterned after the actors or whatever? Because yeah, like Ho-Sung was saying, Rich is, for me, he's like Kano. He is like, you know, and I don't find Kano a bad guy. He's a working guy, and if he could make some money, you know, get a paycheck working for the Black Dragon Society, yeah, that's what he'll do. But that's what he does in martial arts. Ho-Sung, yeah, really, you know, I get these guys, you know, we joke around all the time. Ho-Sung, among us, was the champion. The champion, you know, when we were competing in martial arts tournaments on the national level at that time, Ho-Sung was the champion. But let's not get us in anything twisted. Kung Lao is just as good as Liu Kang. So.
You know what? I have one more thing to add.
I bet it's good. And I think Liu Kang begs to differ.
So like Ho-Sung said, we were all like correct for each role, and this just popped in my head right now. What's funny, Ho, is not one of us were replaced where we were like, well, you know what? You're not good for Liu Kang. We need to bring Tony in, or Tony's not a good Kung Lao. That never happened. You know, we fit exactly for each role, which is just like Tony said, lightning in a bottle, and that's astonishing in today's format. Because you have so many people coming in, and you're like, no, that's not it. That's not it.
Right, and many things that you see, like you're like, oh, that's awkward, that's not right, or whatever it is. I would say, MK has lasted what, 30, 20 years, 30 years?
30 years now, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so in Canada, that's 30 years. We're a little bit older than I thought. So imagine something lasting 30 years. It's really incredible. If you look back in time, there's only a handful of things, right? You have Star Wars, Turtles, maybe Power Rangers.
Street Fighter.
But not the same, not in the same way, right? Not the same way as the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles or MK. So if you think back in time, like how many things lasted 30 years? It's not that many. So the fact that we've lasted 30 years and you guys are here, you know, we're grateful you guys are here to listen to us about this, which 30 years is a long time. So hopefully we could do another, let's say another decade or so, and we'll see you guys again. But it's not easy going 30 years. Right?
So if y'all like to field some questions, the awesome people from Super Monster Parties can come up to the center line if y'all want to walk up and maybe ask a question or two. Please feel free to come up. We'd love to hear what you have to ask.
Well, he stood up, so he's got to go first.
All right.
Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you guys showing up for all of us. I just wanted to ask, you came up with a brilliant idea. What was the whole thing behind fatalities and stuff like that?
Wait, if it was brilliant, it would probably be me, but unfortunately it's not. So Dan, I'm not sure who it is, but.
So John and I were filming responses. We were going to have a response to every single flipping technique, a different response. So it wasn't just a basic response. We wanted to have like, oh, if you get jabbed, you go like this, and then if you get jabbed a little harder, you might go like this, and then one knockback, and then one like this if you get exactly in the stomach, and then we had all these responses, and then, at one point, when, I would get hit, but not super hard, but almost unconscious, because we were like, oh, we gotta film that. I was kind of going like this. Like I'm gonna pass out. And then John looks at it and he's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but he just was like, is there something matter? And I looked at it, and I was just like, that can't end like that. And he's like, no, it can't end like that. We gotta think of some way, we need to think of like a finishing move. Like in the Kung Fu movies, how they finish them, have some secret technique to finish
it.
Yeah. And that's how the whole phrase finishing started, because we were trying to think of finishing moves. To have each individual have 3 finishing moves was the original idea, 3 different ones, which never came to fruition. But I'll tell you that first fatality, well, he didn't have any, but for the first fatality for Johnny Cage was I punch a hole in his head and he turns towards the camera and he had a hole in his head. And I think that later on they used something like that in the game, but originally that was going to be Mortal Kombat.
What's your name?
Jeff.
What's your name?
So this is for Hudson Pod. Recently I went back to a kind of related WWC Masters. I wanted to hear some spicy stories from there.
I think we've been here too long for that. So, I'll try to keep it to a minimum. So, show of hands of those who know WWC Masters. Not that many of you guys. Okay, so I appreciate you having watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys have seen this.
I put my hand up.
Gosh. So WMC Masters is a show I did for Fox in the morning, right? Fox for kids, yeah, 4 kids. I'll say this. So when we were filming that, we were filming at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And not a lot of people could go that long, right? Like, because you're fighting literally every single, like, I had a fight with my brother, Star Warrior. And we fought every single minute of that time from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you literally, you're about to pass out. And I would say besides the turtles, being in the turtle suit, which is 40 pounds, 120 degrees, and you're about to pass out every minute. Besides that, fighting from for 12 hours was the hardest thing you could do. Like, imagine running around for 12 hours a day. Yeah, like right now, if they ask me to do it, I'm like, I can't do it. Back then, when you were younger and you were like a little bit crazy, you can do it. So I would say, besides the turtles, WC Masters was the hardest thing to do because of the fight sequence.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martin, what's your question?
You guys seem to have a lot of fun stories about doing all the live action stuff, but I'm curious as to what y'all's reactions were to the transition to motion capture. Was it something you were looking forward to because it was less involved, or did you lament not being able to be like the face of the character?
Well, I think we are the face of the character, but you mean like when I came on board? I'll say this real quick, you guys can do it. When I came on board, they had already mastered everything, right? So they were just telling me, just do whatever you think is best. So what was interesting is, first you do it fast, and then you do it slow because they're like, the camera can't catch that, because the camera was very antiquated back then. So you're able to do it fast, which is great, and then you have to do it slow perfectly, which is a little bit harder. But for me, it was like, they have great stories because they're the ones that designed the game. I just came in, to play the character Liu Kang, and they had mastered everything by then. So you guys can probably talk about it.
Yeah, I was more. That was great. I was talking about the 3D transition.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but when you're passionate about something, and we've all been there, all of us here, when we want to either fix a light bulb, that's in the shower, and you don't know how to unscrew the lid, and then you're like, oh, there's clips there. You go to YouTube or whatever. You do this crash course of wanting to learn something, and everybody here in this room has done it. I know that. But that was the transition from 2D to 3D for me, and that was during Mythologies, because we were doing that side scroller with Sub-Zero, and we had a guy come aboard, and at the time we were transitioning also into 3D. We had a motion capture studio. When they first bought the motion capture studio at Midway, we did not have a second building on California. And I was asked to come in, because I worked for them, I was asked to suit up and test the Vicon system, which is it's one of the 3D motion capture systems. And Jim Gentile and another person, I forget his name, and please forgive me, if you're listening to this. They wanted me to test the system. They put the nodes on me, and I was very interested in learning that entire process from, and that's what I ended up doing for them. I set up their motion capture studio. I was a tech lead for that, and I also did the suit, and I also learned how to put the label, the nodes on all the offsets and on all the joints. And that was just a passionate thing that I did. And nobody was there to teach myself and another guy named Richard Ho, very talented individual, who moved on to the studio. He got to do Tao Fang and everything. So him and I, at the time, there were certain people who didn't want us to, they wanted us to learn but not learn, because they wanted somebody to have job security, and they just wanted somebody in that position to, become the tech lead. But the tech lead and the person who knew how to run the studio. But both Richard and I were on an MK franchise, and we were thinking, hey, well, we love doing this, and we just want to learn it so that way we can go in and capture whenever we want to capture. So for us, it was about a week-long process of learning that. And you know, now that I know everything, if anybody ever needed to know or wanted to reach out, like, hey, how do you run the system? How do you calibrate it? How do you do anything? I know that like the back of my hand now. But it took about a week, you know, and I was fortunate enough that Midway said, hey guys, take the time to do this, you know, because it just benefited the company. So the transition is a little odd. Like Ho said, at first you were like, do it sort of fast, but now do it controlled fast. And then when you started doing motion capture, back then when we did 2D, it was 30 to 60 frames a second. And then we went, and I know I'm getting technical, but I'm sorry. I'm passionate about this. When we go into mocap, we can go up to 120 frames a second. So within one frame, we'll have 120 frames. So it breaks it down into that. And there are some things that you can capture really fast, but there are other things that I noticed that when I started doing the sword, because you know I practiced with my brother, and he's always beating my ass going, you know, be faster, be better. And this is what's great about all of us. We all wanted to be faster and better than each of us. But we all knew that we were competing and we would always be at that same level. So when one got pushed up, you know, we didn't want him to be on top, so we would reach him. You know what I mean? And that's what's great. It was a friendly competition. So for some of the sword stuff, I noticed that it would skip frames. So we were, you know, working with the company, you know, they were like, oh yeah, you bump up your frame rate to 150, and then we noticed that sometimes it doesn't track it right, but it does. And you just gotta go in there and manipulate the frames and the numbers and go, okay, there it is. And, you know, not recalibrate, but reprocess those frames. So for me, the transition became probably a long process of, if any of these guys came in, I was the guy that said, you gotta do it like this is how you can capture it, be yourself, be relaxed, here are the points we need, and you know, it has to be up and running and quick now for a corporation to be streamlined, because you don't want any hiccups. Otherwise, there'll be a red flag where you're like, okay, this is just taking too long. You know, we're gonna have to get somebody else in to take over this process. And I was always confident enough to be like, oh, is Ho-Sung coming in? Which these guys, unfortunately, except for you came in, Taylor came in, and I was able to, you know, just say, hey Tony, this is a new system, this is how we do it. And I think Tony can answer that a little better than I can, because I was, you know.
Yeah. So really on a personal, yeah. So Carlos is absolutely correct on everything he said. You know, on that very technical level. And I gotta say, you know, as the games transition to motion capture or whatever, and especially, you know, Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 11, hopefully more MK1 now, I think they look great, and I think they, you know, they're great games. But you won't hear, I'm almost certain, you won't hear the amount of people, oh my God, I was 10 years old, and I would, you know, I'd get together with my friends and would play, you know, my parents wouldn't let us play, or we're at the arcade, or at the laundromat, or whatever. Yes. The games are great, don't get me wrong, but there's something about,
It's that culture.
It's the culture, and really the old school, way that we did this, it really has the personality and the pixels that like, oh my God, look, that's Carlos, oh my God, it's Ho-Sung, pack. So there's that I don't know if we could capture again like that. So again, this is why this moment in time, you know, is so special. And so yeah, the games are great. They look amazing, they play amazing, everything. But that 10-year-old who discovered these games, I don't know if you'll have that version anymore. So
No, you're correct. I know we got into that real quick. It's that subculture of all of us when we were younger, we would get together and do something. Now it is, I'm online, and I know, I understand it's different, because, you know, World of Warcraft was kind of like that, where it was socialization. But now it's entirely different, where it's like, I'm online, I'm just gonna hook up to somebody wherever else, and I'm never gonna talk to them. I'm just gonna sit there and fight. Or
I think it might be a misunderstanding of what gaming is. Meaning, like now with these new games, no one person does the whole. Like before, in Mortal Kombat 1, we did the voices, we did the sound, we did everything. You know, we created, it wasn't like you're going to hire a voice actor to do it. No, everything was like us or somebody who's working on a project or inviting somebody else to come in from get over here. Richard DeVizio created that, even though hardly anybody knows that. I did the voice, which is awesome, but that was Richard DeVizio. He acting like Richard DeVizio doing Get Over Here. But no longer does the whole action, like does the action, does the voice and things like that. And I think that might be missing in that industry where, when we did it, when you look at the game, there's some kind of spirit. It's like there's a ghost in there. And you can feel the game, and now since no one person is doing it, and everybody else is doing little parts of it, I think that's not coming out. I think they should just get like some martial art person who can also do a little acting and their voice is okay, and just work with that person. And let them be Batman for a while, or like what we have, Superman for a while, and then you can change it up later. Yeah. But the gaming industry is like, oh, you do these moves, and that's it, and then you do these moves, and that's it. It seems like they want to cripple themselves, or not. I don't know. They're attacking it different. They should attack it.
Yeah, I think it's a different approach, where back in the day, it was a smaller team. You had 5 to 6 people, and then us who came in. And now it's just gotten, like a larger team, larger storyline, and everything's 3D, and that's just the approach that it is now from a technology standpoint, I think. Whether it's positive or negative, I can't.
But also, thank you for keeping standing there.
Yeah, we did.
Well, we were sitting and
rambling.
Well, I told them we could talk for like 5 or 6 hours. No, I said 2 hours. We could all sit up here for 5 or 6 hours and just talk about everything. Real quick, sorry. I was talking to Rich last week, and I had mentioned a story. Yeah, Richard DeVizio. Because we all talk to each other, like, whether it's once a week, once a month, or once every 6 months. But I talk to Rich, and so does Daniel, and these guys every now and then, and we were discussing something about Mortal Kombat, and I had mentioned something, and I can't remember what story it was, but I said, hey, Book, do you remember this, and this? And Rich is like, oh my God, I totally forgot about we did something like that. It wasn't anything bad, it was just like, you had these moments where we're all together. I'm sure there were tournament stories that we all had, like, holy shit, remember when we got to the hotel and just weird stuff. And I know I posted a picture of my brother, like as Johnny Cage, because we were at some convention for Midway. He's in his suit, his Johnny Cage suit, and I said, Cage is mad because I didn't make my bed, and mom's gonna yell at me. We have funny stories like that are behind the scenes that nobody ever hears that. I mean, we only tell that to each other and throw it around. But what amazes me is the stories you guys have when you're like, hey, I was 10 years old, had a great life, went home, ran into the basement, and all my friends followed me, and we had a tournament in there, and we all played, ordered pizzas, and our family loved that. Or I came from a broken home, and the only thing I had to escape was Mortal Kombat. And I just want to say, we really appreciate your stories, because that helps us relate to you guys, because we're all human.
What's your name? Your name is?
Hey, Steve.
You said everyone say hi, Steve?
Hey, Steve.
Steve, what's your question?
Alright, so hey, that 10-year-old you're talking about, I was probably 10, 11 as well. I'm turning 40, next year.
That's perfect.
So I wonder if
teams and hearing about how you're pouring so much of your own creative energy and your own personality into these characters, I have to imagine that there were characters that maybe you were trying to design or had.
Finish him. Justin?
So just thinking about the characters that you're pouring into, I have to imagine some were left on the cutting room floor, or maybe there were characters that, as you were developing one character, or what about another character? And I'm just thinking about how the roster grew from 1 to 3, right? MK1 to MK3. It's a big roster by MK3 compared to MK1. So I'm just curious, were there characters that you were trying to pour into besides the characters that we know from the published game that didn't make it into the final games?
I don't know about characters, but when we were getting crunched. They were complaining that we're taking too long.
That's always their complaint.
Yeah, it was complaining we're taking too long when we were trying to create a game out of nothing. out of the first phrase is do something cool. Right? That's our direction.
That's always
do something cool. Oh, you guys are taking too much time. We're shooting 600 hours of video. Within like a few months. It's just craziness. But we were going to do Scorpion. Originally, he was just going to be the only Lin Kuei, and that was it. And then we brought in, they were like, oh, we need another one. We're going to do palette swap. So now we're going to have Sub-Zero, and Sub-Zero and Scorpion are brothers, and they're the same clan, and that's going to be the storyline. And they're like, okay, Daniel, start developing Sub-Zero. And then John's like, and by the way, develop 2 more characters, so have 4 Lin Kuei in case there's time to have like some kind of more characters. And then Carlos and Rich wanted a secret character where you can, if Kano's in trouble, you can call in Raiden to help him fight and get his life back. And I was like, oh yeah, that way, the battle can go on. And then John and Ed are like, we can't do that because it's all about the quarters. The quarters, you got up in a quarter and lose that every way until you got in another quarter. So that's a terrible idea to have like a tag team where you can make the fight last longer. So anyway, so I think that hearing like we're making more characters and having a secret character eventually led to having somebody click and be like, oh, we can have a secret character Reptile. So there was a lot of, just kind of ideas, all these ideas coming on, different things with different characters and stuff like that. But I do recall that we wanted 2 females in the first Mortal Kombat game. So we only had 1. So, later on, there were more. But there was always tons of ideas, just craziness.
Yeah, that always happens in game development. You always have, on Deadly Alliance, we had at least 3 or 4 months to do concepts. And I know your question was 1 through 3, but at some point you wanna do a character, but you have to look at your project time and are you going to be able to complete everything that you have in addition to these new characters that you created. And sometimes things get dropped, sometimes things turn into another different character, and that just happens in game development. But with what my brother said, there was that from my understanding, and once again somebody will have to either prove me wrong or just come forward and say, well, this is how it actually was, I have all the paperwork. There was no combat design, there was a short character roster, and then he had to build off the next set of ninjas, from Scorpion and Sub-Zero. So sometimes when you're in development, culturally something happens and you're like, oh, I gotta feed off of that. So that when my game comes out, people can relate to that, and then I want to pick that up. So it's just, it's not a bad thing and it's not a good thing. It's just something that happens naturally.
And then in my experience, And I keep forgetting this, actually. I was the first person to bring Fujin to life.
Yes.
And I keep forgetting this. Mainly because, so this was in mythology, I think. So,
I got a good story about things.
okay, but yeah, so I put on the suit, so I'm doing whatever they're asking me to do. But Fujin, being the wind god that he is, that's not something that was me. But I tried to the best of my abilities to do everything that I could to bring this thing to life.
And you did a great job.
Thank you. But everybody here, oh my God, you're Kung Lao. And the thing about Kung Lao, it's that same, we keep getting back to this though. Like, Hosang and I, we train together. We all train together. And then Hosang and I trained in China together. We're competing against each other. There's this, art imitating life, imitating art in that part. And so that's that magic, as opposed to characters that, it's a little bit different, a character that didn't develop or whatever, or, that thing that resonates. Because nobody never ever comes up, oh my God, I love your Raiden. I mean, your Fujin or whatever. Like, that, I never hear that. But the Kung Lao thing, it is because, whether it's Kung Lao, Liu Kang, Raiden, Johnny Cage, or whatever, these are the things that resonate with people.
So my Fujin story is, it's kind of related to Raiden, the first Raiden that we did with John. Remember, he had a cape?
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, that's not going to work. So John still wanted to continue the cape design, but he did it with Fujin. And I remember when Tony came in, he had to wear this red cape, and my job, I mean, other than the 50 million other jobs that I had in development, was when Tony would move, I would have to mimic the cape, and I either had 2 sticks on each end, or I would have to have a wire that would or a string that would make it flow. And when he said that, I just remember, I had a flashback of holy crap, all the stuff I did. And everything that we all did, from Danny sweeping up the floor to make sure whether it's Osung or myself or Tony or Rich would come in and they can't fall on the floor, it's all gotta be nice, because they were using a room that was also a storage room. And people were like, oh, I'll just drop shit on the floor. They don't know that next day somebody has to come in and film a game that's in a land. So when Tony coming in, I remember I was just I just had this one frame, stick in my head of a flashback of a memory of me doing the flowing of the cape, because as soon as he did that, I remembered Superman and Cavill. When they did, everything was in 3D, and I was like, holy cow, that's how much game design has changed, from the 2D aspect of this, and I was like, holy cow, I was a part of that, that's great, but, even though mythologies didn't do that well, because there was a transition for PS2, Tony did a great job, and so did his son Taylor. Taylor was on MK9 through 11 doing stuff for us, and once again it's that legacy, just like father, like son. I could ask him, go out there, I want you to spin the staff like a 3D demon, and he would do it, and it's just, those are great opportunities, it's up to us having those experiences.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to add on to that. I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Can you guys confirm that Ermac was actually a hidden character?
In MK1 or 2, the original, or this next one? Oh, no, I can't confirm it.
Oh.
Well, when you're in game development, you sign an agreement, you can't say anything.
All right, everybody, count of 3, boom, 1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry.
Oh, what's your name?
John.
Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
I was just wondering, so a couple of years back, there was I remember a Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe that came out.
Yes.
And we know they want that transition kind of into the Injustice games and things like that. My question is, by any chance were you all directly or indirectly involved with any of the Injustice projects, being that there are also Mortal Kombat characters in Injustice?
Yes, I was on the midway nether realm, which sure that, when Warner Brothers acquired them. I was on the midway nether realm. I was their animation lead. Early on, I was just an animator, and then I became their lead, and then I ran their motion capture studio for them. So I've been on every game since Mortal Kombat 1 up until MK1. I did that for 2 years, and then retired, and they're coming out in September, so I was part of that production team. So yes, there was, I was a part of MK vs. GT, and I was also part of Injustice 1 and 2. Did you have any other specific questions for?
No, I was just curious whether or not y'all I was just curious whether or not y'all.
Yeah, I played almost every character in both Injustices, meaning whether you had to fill in, I had to do a proof of concept from MKDC to Injustice 1, working with their combat designer, John Edwards, very talented individual who's not there anymore. And my whole pitch was, and he liked that because he was thinking in his head, kind of at the same time we would walk into each other and I would say, hey, for Superman, I know we do stances, like just standing, but I know my animators and myself had this great, I got this great idea and I pitched it to them to make sure the workload wouldn't be too much. Can't we have a character that just floats in the air and he does his whole style like that? And Edwards is like, I was thinking of that too. So we tried it at MKDC, and it kind of was, I'm not going to say it was shot down, it's just we couldn't do it because of production value and standpoint. But when we went to Injustice, we immediately did that because we had the bandwidth to do something like that. So,
very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
What's your name? Say hi, John.
Hey, John. My name's John. Keep out of this. Just
All right.
So, in Mortal Kombat 3, Scorpion was not included. What's the storyline there?
In Mortal Kombat 3 is when I started asking for the money they promised me. So these, until they can somebody step forward and say no. For the first 6 weeks, I worked on Mortal Kombat, creating the game. I didn't get paid. And then, when I asked John about the payment, he looked at me, he's like, they didn't pay you, they didn't mail you a check, and I was like, no. And he's like, he's just, I don't know what to do, I can't, you know how much money we owe you? Because they're paying an hourly for it, and then we're doing, the first week we did 60 hours. So you can imagine the amount of money, and then I was just like, well, okay, I don't want you to get in trouble, we'll have to try to figure it out. So they never, ever paid me even for that. And so when John and Ed promised me there would be only 200 arcade games, because I was like, do 201, and I will give you permission to make as many arcade games as you want. And then John and Ed were like, you're crazy. We're only making 200 arcade cabinets, I promise you that. And then when they pre-sold 10,000, I was like, you should have took the 201. And they're like, don't worry, we're gonna pay you. So in the end, for me, I can't speak for these guys, in the end, when I started asking them for money, they were like, basically, not only cut me off, but they were like, oh, I need anything Daniel Pesina created greatly, we're not going to include it. So that's why there's no Johnny Cage, Scorpion, there's Sub-Zero in the third Mortal Kombat. When it didn't do well, then they didn't make another Mortal Kombat, but I know
He's the original Sub-Zero, not the John Turk with the...
Yeah,
that was the technology.
Yeah, that was using knowledge. But that's why later on, I know they had Trilogy, and then they had Supreme, Ultimate. They had like 3 of them, right? One didn't do good, so they had to do another one, and then somebody says, oh, it's because the characters weren't likable, and I'm like, well, how can they not be likable when they're in every Mortal Kombat game ever since? So that is my public statement about that, and that's my opinion. If they'd like to debate that, they can come right here, talk to me about it. You guys can hear it all. Don't tweet or have somebody else do that. Come face to face. Face me face to face, and we can have a little discussion about what created Mortal Kombat. Thank you.
Hey, John again.
Hey, John!
Hello.
What's your problem?
So, when Mortal Kombat 1 came out, I don't know, well, let's just call it 10 or 7, I'm 42 now, so.
Yeah.
There were a few other games that did motion capture, and there were other fighting games that were, it was viscerally different with Mortal Kombat to the point where there were congressional hearings about it. And I'm just curious, what was that like being the scapegoat for all the politicians in the country who might say, well, it's not us, no, it's the Mortal Kombat guys, they're ruining the kids of the next generation. What was that like during that time when everyone was pointing at you and saying, well, it's these guys?
You got them.
Don't get me started with politicians. Well, it's like everybody sitting in this room, right? I mean, we're all human. We all love the same thing. I bet you, I can guarantee you, I can walk up to anybody here, we'll disagree on one thing. But what politicians do, those bloodsuckers, will latch on to anything, and then they will tell you what's right and wrong, as opposed to listening to us who put them in that position and say, hey, do this or that. You know, because all of us here just want to keep our money and make sure that they don't fucking stick their hands in our That's it. But, and I'm sorry, when that first happened, and I was a gamer, I think I was in my 20s and growing up with, Pong and whatever else and, Tempest and everything and Tron and what was the tank battle? What was the tank game? Battlezone, yeah,
That was a good one.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and growing up with, the turbo graphics and the slaughterhouse and all of that and everything bloody that we watched. The Kung Fu movies were the bloodiest from China, they would rip people's guts out. And here are moral, ethical martial artists, and we had these politicians who wanted to just latch onto something and create a rating system so that way they can get some kickbacks and then, create this board, because this does happen. Whenever we make fatalities, and I think that, this is just a system they make. Whenever we make fatalities, we would have to send all those fatalities to a board that would go over and say that you were either PG-13, rated R, or rated X. And then we would either, sometimes we would get hit because somebody in there didn't like, hey, this hand was too sharp and cut that guy's head off too much. Can you tone that down? And then the next year we would do the same exact thing and it would pass. There was no consistent value to everything. So unfortunately, sometimes we would go back and like, hey, you gotta tweak this, or we would think in our head, okay, stop yourself. We can't rip these guts out and then wrap them around and choke them into death. Because we get blamed for that. As opposed to all of us would parent and say, hey, you can't walk. Remember, okay, hold on. I'm getting into this. Remember when your parents were like, you're playing Mortal Kombat Sega Genesis with the blood out? You guys are grounded. I was grounded for a week. Remember it? But we can all police ourselves and be like, oh shit, turn it off. Parents looking over shoulder. Turn that blood off. Yeah, we're just giving each other, that's it. They would watch for 5 minutes, and then when they leave, walking up the steps, you go, okay, I gotta put that bull.
Alright, John. Here, I'm gonna talk. I got a very personal story for you. So let's turn back the clock a little bit. And, Danny's talking about, oh yeah, we're doing this video game. And, we're going to shoot this video. Oh, that's awesome. I'm not, I break my foot, I'm not in it, but they go ahead with the video game. Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that you're doing this video game. I don't even know what you're doing, but I'm kind of cool. And then that game becomes Mortal Kombat. Okay, and you see this thing everywhere. And everyone's talking about it. It's like these are my guys, but they're everywhere.
You're left out.
Yes! and then it's like, oh, they're everywhere. And even, everyone's talking about it. You go to arcade and you see this everywhere. You turn on MTV and that kid, Mortal Kombat, because it's Mortal Monday coming up. It's like, oh my God, I can't get away from these guys. Maybe, you know what? I'm just gonna watch some C-SPAN or whatever. I don't know. And all of a sudden, Lieberman, they're talking about me. It's like, tell Tobias, I'm in this next game. I don't care what happens. But that's what that felt like. When you turn on C-SPAN and see Lieberman, at least for me, this is what it felt like when I'm watching that.
Why don't we have a rating system for all our politicians? And drug tested, do background checks, and then leave our money alone.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, what's your name? Say hi, Austin. All right, what's your question?
I have a question for Rosa.
Yes.
In MK2, you have a friendship where a disco ball comes down and you do a little dance.
Yes.
Is that something that the developers planned for you to do, or did you come up with that?
So that's the friendship, right? And in MK1 we had the fatality, and MK2 they want some friendship. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? I thought this was supposed to be a violent game. Like, are we going completely opposite? You guys are succumbing to the politicians here? So they initially said, oh yeah, let's do the moonwalk. And I said, sure, let's do the moonwalk. So we did the moonwalk because I think Michael Jackson was popular.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the moonwalk was popular at the time. So we did that. And I thought to myself, but that's really generic because like everyone does the moonwalk. So when we were just goofing around, I said we should do something like this, and I did that silly dance. And I did not think it was going to make it. Somehow, John and Ed, I guess, decided, forget the moonwalk, which I was really good at the time, and let's do the silly dance. So that's how the silly dance came up.
I'm gonna add one more thing to that.
What was that?
I'm gonna add one more thing to that. Where's that guy at?
Austin.
He's adding one more thing.
Where you at, Austin?
Houston, Austin.
Okay, so you're asking me Hosam about this dance, and he's calling it the silly dance or whatever.
But now it's about me.
But not about me. Okay, I joke around all the time. But obviously I love everybody. I love Hosam. And whatever success anybody has, I really, take pride in knowing that these guys are doing this. But one thing that I am jealous about, you talk about the silly dance. I don't know if you guys know, but in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, okay, so Vanilla Ice is in that, right? And then go ninja, go ninja, go. Okay, and this is, so, martial arts, whatever, But somebody up here got to dance in that sequence with Vanilla Ice.
That was me. Oh no, dancing a turtle out there was not easy.
If there's one thing that I'm jealous about, it's that.
You were not there. That's
I would not.
So Tony came in Turtles 3. Again, he missed out on Turtles 2. And Danny and I were there. Sorry.
I see a pattern in this song. The two guys make it successful, and then I jump in. Work out all the kinks, and then I jump in, and it's easy money for me.
But thank you, Austin. That's your name?
What do you mean I have that name, John?
What do we say? What's your question?
With the new release of how Mortal Kombat 1 is a officially coming out in September, and it's supposed to be like a restart of like everything that Mortal Kombat has been in the past. Like in that way, we see characters like Liu Kang officially taking Raiden's place, and Raiden's place taking Kung Lao's, Kung Lao taking Liu Kang, and the whole switcheroos are happening. Because like not striking in a way, like you see that as like, wow, like I never thought of it in that way, or see it as like little switcheroos that you guys have done in the past as well in previous Mortal Kombat games as you guys are developing.
And for me, no, because there's no. The whole thing is you want to recreate something that's already created is really, really difficult. So when people are, oh, we want to reset and stuff like that, I just don't really understand it because then recreate something else. We can't be like, okay, we're going to take, you know, like I heard that Scorpion and Sub-Zero are brothers. Well, that's the first game. That's not a reboot. That's the original idea. So you can't be like take an original idea and say, no, we're going to make it new. You know, or take things like that have already been created. Like, 2, you already said that Raiden is immortal. So I know one time they killed Raiden. I'm like, wait a minute, he's immortal. Oh, they took away his power. But he's immortal. How do you do that? Oh, because they did a time slip. Yeah, but he's immortal. You can't take away his power and he lives forever. I don't understand how, oh no, now they gave his power to Liu Kang. You realize he's immortal and you technically can't really do that in any type of fantasy world except for the world of Warner Brothers, I guess. So a lot of it is, you know, hopefully this game comes out good for the fans and things like that, but when they say reset, it just means nothing, I think, to me. Because you're still feeding off the original, so you're not resetting. You know,
but I think we want it to be great because it would have Mortal Kombat live on, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully it's amazing. But I will say, one of the things that they really should do is consult John Tobias, right? Because he was the soul of MK, you know, in the beginning. And I don't know if he has input. Maybe he does, right? I'm not sure. But he, I feel like, would give you a good answer. He'd be the person to answer for that, right?
Yeah, without that, you know, as I said originally, you know, John was really the main creator. Like, we got all these stories because we got to create Mortal Kombat because he wanted the best for the game, his game. Mortal Kombat 1 was really about, you know, I got to override Ed. When we were doing stuff, I could override him. I was like, originally he wanted to do a lasso around a person and tie them up and to get a free hit. And then I was like, I'm not going to do a Wonder Woman move. But because it seems like a cheap way for a martial artist to get a hit. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be a fight. You're fighting for a round, you're not a second fighter. You're not going to fall for the rope around your body trick. You know, so I was just like, oh, we're going to do a rope there. And I described it, and John was like, right away, we're going to do that. So I just said an idea, and then we're able to get that. So different times we were like, oh, you know, they would be like, oh, let's do this. And I was like, no, that's kind of a mainstream idea. This is not a mainstream game. We're not going to do that. And then John would be like, yes, you're correct. We're going to do that. So for the first game, like what someone said, if you really want to recreate Mortal Kombat, you really probably the only person who needs I don't get along with him that much. It's probably John Tobias. You know, you gotta give him credit for that. You're pulling for the wrong crowd. You know.
Yeah, like the whole song that my brother said, we want the success, that to be a success. But ultimately, that's up to you guys to decide whether that was a correct reset or, you know, whatever. You know, people will accept it or they might not. You know, like in development, it's a gamble. When you want to publish a game, you don't know what's going to be culturally relevant. You don't know if the fans are going to like it. You know, there are thousands of games that come out and people just are like, oh, never playing that. You know, and they never see the light of day at number 2. So, wish them the best.
Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you guys so much.
All right, we've got 2 questions left. Sir, what's your question? What's your name?
Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, John.
You guys got a lot of Johns here in Texas.
So first of all, thank you. Obviously, I'm sure you guys hear it a lot, but I mean, you guys live out of history. It's like the greatest story of games. I mean, it's just part of my childhood and it still lives on to this day.
Thank you.
I think about motion capture, what you were doing then, and then I saw your faces at the credits scene, like getting into photography, knowing that came from photographs and not pixels. It just drove me crazy. I was like just so blown away. And then motion capture became performance capture, and now we're putting dots on people's faces. But I just realized that you guys were performance capture before performance capture was even a thing. Correct. And now they talk about it today like it's something new. But what you guys did was revolutionary, and I love you for it.
Thank you.
I don't like to talk about rumors, but I lived long enough thinking and wondering if this was true or not, that the HD remasters of the original trilogy that were heavily rumored to be being made or screenshots leaked, was there ever any talk of that ever happening where you guys, I don't know if you go back and recapture yourself, but or at least there's going to be a re-release of the original trilogy with updated graphics in development? It's a 2-parter, but that was the first one I was like, it's a pretty much yes or no. Or
Well, didn't Taylor work on this?
So there was the.
Yeah, look, answer this one. And then I'll feed into
Okay. Yeah, so there was a time when they were working on Mortal Kombat HD, and it wasn't the original. Footage remastered or whatever. They took the original footage and then placed different actors. Like they made it somewhat transparent and put different actors in there to capture their motion. And Carlos could talk in depth about the process here. But one thing that I wish it would have happened, because I got a call. Oh yeah, we want to bring you on as a consultant. What you gotta do is you gotta hire my son to play Kung Lao. Now here's my address. You can tell me my child. But it's one of those things where, and for anyone who has kids or whatever, when you see them growing up and you see aspects of yourself and especially aspects that you enjoy about yourself in that child, it's very gratifying. But then to take it where there's this image of you and it's like, very transparent, but then your son is inside that image doing exactly what you were doing. Oh my God, this is crazy. It is crazy. And he has his own hat, and he has his, it's crazy, and I wish they would have been able to do this, but, it broke down. But yeah, I wish that would have happened.
Once again, this is my own opinion. It's not a representative of WP or NetherRealm Studios. But when I was on MK, I think it was MK9 when that was all happening.
Right.
Yeah, and I knew Taylor was going in, and I knew a couple other performers who had gone in to do the 2D overlay. But at some point, like he said, production broke down, but we were never. On the NetherRealm side, we never got any footage. There might have been people who got footage, but I never saw any of it. And I was just told, like, hey, this is not going to work out. And I don't know if it's because of whether you're hiring a third party to do something and there's a disagreement there. I can't speak to what the breakdown was of it, but at some point it just stopped. And, knowing all the people who had expected an HD version, you're kind of sad because you're like, well, there doesn't need to be a reboot. There just needs to be an up-res of Daniel Pesina, Hosam Pack, and the rest of us being put out there. This is my own opinion. But that brings me to another point. I was playing Shadow Monks the other day. And then for this event, I put these two big guys together in a little clip that I had on my Instagram. And immediately, and I have a Steam Deck, and I'm sitting there thinking like, wouldn't this be great to have, whether you're on PC, whether you're on the Switch, whether you're on Steam Deck, whether you're on whatever portable game that Sony's thinking of trying to put out, and I'm not saying I know anything about that, I don't. But wouldn't that be fantastic just having like a Shaolin Monks HD update, whether it was an update of that game or they said, hey, we're going to redo an HD version similar to this, still have that same spirit and feeling. It's a wonder why they don't do that. I can't explain why not. Maybe it's just a numbers thing. They know the numbers of like, well, people won't pay for it. But, it's different when you talk to all of us in here. You're like, no, this is freaking like, what is what? My suggestion would be if there's a game out there you want done in HD, do a petition, then submit it to Warner Brothers directly or your game company that you're passionate about. Like, hey, you know what? We need an HD version of Blizzard's StarCraft 2. Just throwing that out there. My suggestion would be like anything else. Get a petition. You get over 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people. I'm sure there would be 500,000 people easily for 1, 2, and 3 for Mortal Kombat. And then you just send it to them and you go, hey, can you do it? And then maybe that might be, they might say, oh, that's a lot of people. We should pursue this. So that's my suggestion.
All right, so we have the last question. We have 5 minutes left.
Thank you.
All right, what's your name?
Yeah. That's a tricky one, I know.
Gideon.
Say hello to Gennady.
Alright, so I'm from Brazil, and I have 2016 I moved to the US, and growing up in the 90s in Brazil, no one had a video game. Only one kid on the whole street had Super Nintendo, and we'd all gather at his house to play Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, that's cool.
And
That's
since
awesome.
no one spoke English whatsoever back then in my small town, you would constantly endlessly debate what you guys were saying. So, Liu Kang and Raiden, what were you saying and how did you come up with it? We had our own theories. We thought you were actually saying sentences in English that we just translated and we thought you were saying something. So we thought Raiden said, now I'm going to hit you in Portuguese. It sounded like that. And Liu Kang had no idea. We were just guessing. What were you saying? How did you come up with those noises?
No, you go ahead and then
So you talk about when he goes like, I think we were goofing around one day, and that's what I said, and then I think they added the game. I don't know if they used my voice or somebody else playing the voice, but I think we're just literally goofing around and just saying stupid things. Like stupid things.
You get
All the
really
same.
tired. When you're filming action for 8 hours in a row, you get really, as he said before, you get really tired and
you just do silly things.
Yes. Like I said, the guy who was Kano created Get Over Here. So it's just so many things out there.
So with Hosung, they added his audio, and they also used, and I think Dan Forden at the time was the sound engineer, the lead guy on MK1, 2, and possibly 3. But that could be corrected. I don't want to give credit to the wrong person, but I'm trying to give credit to Dan. I think, and when you do development, sometimes you don't want the same thing said over and over again, so you have to break it up. But I do know exactly what Raiden says of all of everything he says when he's flying. I do know what Hosung says when he's flying, and there's always a putt, I'm sandwiching these things. You got your bread, and then your meat, and then your bread, and now I'm going to let you down with the bread part. I cannot tell you because I promised Dan Forden, because you will have to ask Dan what, these guys said. And once he lets that out, then it's, that's all okay. But, right now, I know what it is, and I've been asked every time, what did you say when you were
But just know that the answer is right here.
Yes, the answer is here, but I can't, even if you torture me to death, I couldn't tell you. but it's just hilarious. But thank you everyone, and God bless.
Everyone, give it up one more time. Hosan, Anthony, Carlos, Daniel.
We love you all. Seriously, we love you.
Hey,
General Malice.
General